History remembers the winners, the billionaires, the visionaries who changed the world. But history rarely remembers the nights they thought that it was all over. Today, Elon Musk is one of the most recognized entrepreneurs on the planet. His companies have transformed electric vehicles, challenged the aerospace industry, and pushed the boundaries of technology. His influence reaches far beyond business, inspiring millions while attracting just as much criticism. To some, he is a genius. To others, a risk-taker who constantly pushes the limits. But regardless of opinion, there is one thing almost everyone agrees on. His success is extraordinary. Looking at his life today, it's easy to believe that everything happened exactly as planned, that he always knew where he was going, that success was simply a matter of time. But that's not what happened. Long before the headlines, before the billions of dollars, before rockets landed upright and electric cars became mainstream, there was a period when everything was falling apart. His companies were running out of money. Investors were losing confidence. The media questioned almost every decision he made. Even some of the people closest to him wondered whether he had pushed his ambitions too far. Then came a moment that would change everything. A single year. A single decision. And what many believed was his final opportunity to prove that his vision wasn't impossible. If that moment had ended differently, the world might never have known Tesla as it exists today. SpaceX might have become another failed startup. And Elon Musk might simply have become another entrepreneur whose biggest dreams ended in bankruptcy. So, how did one man go from standing on the edge of financial collapse to becoming one of the most influential entrepreneurs of the 21st century? To answer that question, we have to go back to a time before the fame, before the fortune, before the world knew his name. Because every extraordinary story begins somewhere, and this one begins in Pretoria, South Africa. On June 28, 1971, a boy was born into a family that could never have imagined the impact he would one day have on the world. His name was Elon Reeve Musk. As a child, he wasn't the loudest person in the room. He wasn't known for seeking attention. Instead, he was naturally curious. He spent hours reading books, asking questions, and trying to understand how things worked. While many children were outside playing, Elon often disappeared into stories about science, technology, and the future. Books became more than entertainment. They became windows into worlds that didn't yet exist. The curiosity would soon lead him to something that very few children his age had ever experienced: a computer. And once he discovered it, everything began to change. The small computer wasn't just another machine sitting in a room. To Elon, it was an entirely new universe waiting to be explored. Unlike most children his age, he wasn't interested in simply playing games. He wanted to understand how they work. He wanted to know what happened behind the screen, and more importantly, whether he could build something of his own. With no teacher guiding him and no internet tutorials to follow, he began teaching himself computer programming. Page after page, line after line, mistake after mistake. He kept learning. What started as curiosity slowly became an obsession. By the age of 12, that obsession had already produced something remarkable. Elon had created a simple space-themed video game called Blastar. It wasn't the kind of game that would change the world, but for a 12-year-old boy, it represented something much bigger than entertainment. It was proof that ideas could be transformed into something real. When he sold the game's code to a computer magazine for about $500, the money itself wasn't the most important part. The real lesson was far more valuable. For the first time in his life, Elon discovered that knowledge could create value, and that value could create opportunity. It was a lesson that would stay with him for decades. But while his fascination with technology continued to grow, life outside the computer screen wasn't nearly as easy. School wasn't always a place where he felt he belonged. He often found it difficult to fit in, and by his own accounts over the years, he experienced bullying that made those years especially challenging. For many people, experiences like that can crush confidence. For Elon, they seem to have the opposite effect. He withdrew into books, ideas, and imagination, while others focused on the present. He spent more time thinking about the future. He read widely: science fiction, engineering, physics, and biographies of inventors. The stories that fascinated him weren't about people accepting the world as it was. They were about people changing it. That way of thinking slowly became part of his personality. He began asking questions that most people never stopped to consider. Why couldn't humanity travel farther into space? Why couldn't cars run without burning fossil fuels? Why couldn't technology solve problems that everyone else accepted as impossible? At the time, those questions sounded unrealistic. After all, he was still just a teenager living thousands of kilometers away from Silicon Valley. But sometimes, the biggest dreams begin in the smallest places. As he grew older, Elon realized that if he wanted to pursue those dreams, staying where he was might never be enough. The opportunities he imagined simply didn't exist around him. If he wanted to build something extraordinary, he would first have to leave behind everything that was familiar. It wasn't an easy decision. Leaving home meant leaving family, friends, and the only life he had ever known. But every great journey begins with uncertainty. And for Elon Musk, the next step would take him across continent, toward a future that nobody, not even he, could fully predict. What he didn't know was that this decision would become the first of many enormous risks he would take, and unlike selling a simple computer game, the next gamble would involve his entire future.